You're too old for action figures. What's next? Funko Pops? Simone!
Hey there, Mr. Redder here.
And Karen.
Welcome back to another episode of Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. I kicked out my best friend because her boyfriend broke in and stole my figurines. Me, female 21, and my best friend Alice, also female 21, have been close for more than 10 years. We went to the same schools and study abroad in Canada together. I came to Canada many years before Alice and have been living in a house that my parents paid for. That's why, when Alice arrived 4 months ago, I invited her to stay with me. She paid rent, but we never had a contract. It started when she got a new boyfriend. She's head over heels in love for him. His name's Kevin. She constantly invites him to my house without permission. He came and stayed for at least 6 days a week, sometimes overnight. I did have problems with Kevin staying in my house, but when I brought it up with Alice, she brushed it off and said he helped her adapt to this new life. He's Alice's only emotional support besides me. However, I discovered Kevin lurking around my house, especially near my bedroom and figurine room, many times when he was around. It happened a month ago when I got home from school. I didn't notice anything since all the doors were locked, even the door to my figurine room, until I discovered some of my figurines had disappeared. Neither Alice nor Kevin were home, so I assumed somebody had stolen them, since Alice never comes into my figurine room. I called Alice, she didn't pick up, but replied and said Kevin brought her to Ottawa for a surprise trip. I tried to explain that my figurines were gone. She asked if the house had been broken into and told me to go check around. Alice didn't come back until 2 days after that, but she kept sending me pictures of her going out with Kevin to fancy places. For those 2 days, I changed locks, set up hidden security cameras, alerted my parents, and I was panicking, and I was in an extremely distressed mood. Nothing happened for 2 weeks, but Kevin decided to steal again. I saw him, with 2 other guys I didn't know, lockpicking my figurine room door and coming out with my figurines through 2 cameras. I flipped out and called the police. Basically, got him arrested since stupid Kevin decided to go hang around. I believe he called Alice since she was home right after I did, crying and begging me to let Kevin go so we could talk. I literally showed Alice the evidence, but she still begged and said it was all a big misunderstanding. It has been 1 week since Kevin was arrested. Alice kept going after me and demanding that I let him go, and at one point, I just lost it. We were fighting right in the middle of the night, and I kicked her out of my house. Since then, I've been receiving a lot of phone calls from her family, from Kevin's family, and friends threatening me to have Alice back and drop the lawsuit that I pressed on Kevin. They're calling me the jerk for abandoning Alice for some figurines. They say that I'm not allowed to kick her out since she paid rent or they will sue. And now that I'm thinking about it, Alice has no one besides me and Kevin, and she's literally sleeping on my patio every night without eating and showering. So, am I the jerk? You're so far from the jerk, you're in a different galaxy. Check your local tenancy laws. It's possible that the eviction rules don't apply because you are her landlord and she lives with you. If they don't, tell her she needs to reach out to whomever for funds and needs to leave your property with her things immediately. As for the harassment, report is necessary to the proper folks. And I think it goes without saying that Alice knew how her little getaway was funded. That she has no one else local is not your problem nor your concern. She wanted you to let her thief of a boyfriend off the hook and absolutely would have expected you to still allow him in your home. She made her bed. Now she gets to lie in it for eternity. Not the jerk. Fender bender in the car wash, but who's actually at fault? Let's find out. Several years ago, I worked at a gas station with a car wash. This car wash uses a chain that pulls every vehicle through at the same speed, about 25 feet apart. The car wash was the cause of about 80% of all customer grievances. This one was a bit different. One weekday afternoon, I was stocking shelves when a young woman and an old man come in together. They spot me and say that we need to have a conversation, so I move back behind the counter. Okay, so what can I do for you? I ask with a smile. The woman is about to speak when the old man cuts her off. Your car wash damaged my car. Both of ours. Not the first time that I've heard this. Huh, how so? I ask. The woman chimes in. We were both in the car wash. I was ahead of him, and the car wash pulled his car into the back of mine. Hard. Immediate red flag. That's impossible. The chain can't pull one vehicle faster or slower than another. So I tell them exactly that. The woman says, Is it, Pop?
Are you calling me a liar?
The man asks, interrupting her. She's visibly annoyed. What I'm saying, I point out to the man, is that the car wash couldn't have done this. Either you, I make eye contact with the woman, hit the brakes, I look back at the man, or you hit the gas. I didn't touch the brakes, the woman said, sounding as though she started second-guessing herself.
I'm not stupid,
the man shot back.
I never touched the gas pedal.
I had a feeling that the older guy was probably the one at fault here, so he was my prime suspect. Well, thankfully the car wash is lined up with cameras, so I'll just go rewind the footage and see what happened, I say, matter-of-factly.
Oh, that's not necessary. We'll just have the company pay for the damages,
the man says agreeably. Well, the company is going to want to review the footage anyway, so I might as well do it now.
No, let's not waste any more of our time,
the man says nervously. I exaggeratingly raise an eyebrow at him, then glance over at her. She clues in that I'm laying the pressure on him and also looks at him suspiciously. Oh, but surely the camera footage will prove your innocence, sir. Silence. Yup, it's him. So I review the footage, and sure enough, while he was being pulled by the chain at first, he hit the gas and rear-ended her. I came back behind the counter and looked at the woman. Well, turns out he hit the gas and rear-ended you. Now, even though it happened in the car wash, it wasn't caused by the car wash, so this matter will have to be solved between the two of you. If you would like the camera footage to provide to your insurance, I'd be happy to give it to you. I look over at the old man with a smirk. He clearly died a little on the inside, knowing that he's done for. She thanked me and looks over at him as if to say, "Pay up, sucker." Am I the jerk for not paying my boyfriend back after he didn't get me the right birthday cake? I definitely have a bit of a complex about this kind of stuff because of how I grew up. Always with my siblings getting what they asked for while I almost never did, and generally feeling like I never get my turn at things, so it will be helpful to know if I'm justified or overreacting. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 10 months, and it was my birthday yesterday. I put a lot of effort into birthdays, including his, and I was pretty excited about it for the last month or so. There's a local bakery that makes a really good-looking pineapple upside-down cake. I've been really wanting to try it and have been saving it for my birthday. About a month in advance, I told him my birthday was coming up and gave him a few activity ideas and told him that I didn't need a gift, but I really wanted a pineapple upside-down cake from XYZ Bakery. He said sure. Now, I know this was probably annoying, but I did mention this specific cake several times, even before last month. Like, we would drive by the bakery and I'd say something like, "Oh, hey, that's the place with the pineapple cake. I want to do that for my birthday." I wasn't deliberately hammering the point home or anything, or aware that it was going to end in a cake-centered conflict, but there were a couple occasions where it came up. And then a week before my birthday, I did text him a reminder about the cake so that he would have the bakery info on hand. Yesterday rolls around and my boyfriend comes over to my apartment and gives me a gift, which is a Kindle. Not a bad gift, and I know they're expensive, but not something particularly relevant to me either. Then he says, "Let's have cake," and presents what you all know by now is not the pineapple upside-down cake, but just a regular grocery store cake with the frosting balloons. Vanilla cake with vanilla buttercream. You guys, I was legitimately sad. If I knew he was going to drop the ball on this, I would have just gotten myself a pineapple cake months ago instead of waiting. I was on the verge of tears because of not getting the one thing I actually wanted, which was that stupid cake. So I told him I was very disappointed and that he should just go home. He had 2 tickets to a comedy show for that night, and one ended up going to waste. Now he's annoyed because it is of course just a cake and wants me to reimburse the cost of the wasted ticket. It was only about $30, but I'm bristling at the principle of it and said I didn't owe him the money. He sent me a Venmo request for $30. Am I the jerk if I don't pay? Not the jerk. I'm sick of boyfriends and husbands getting a pass on things like this. You clearly told him what you wanted, and then he didn't even get the cake. You asked him for one thing, and he couldn't even do that right. Exactly. How hard is it to follow instructions? I mean, you needn't put any effort. You are told exactly what she wants. I get wanting to give her a more thoughtful gift, but OP said the Kindle wouldn't be relevant to things they like to do. If my husband kept telling me, "Babe, I think this cake would be cool for my birthday," it would be the first thing on my mind to purchase for his birthday. I mean, either he's not listening or he doesn't care. Guy, girls are so confusing. Why can't they just say what they're thinking? We're not mind readers. Girl, I'd love a pineapple upside down cake for my birthday. Literally, just the cake would make me happy. I'm saving the opportunity to try it for my birthday. Please get me that specific cake that I want for my birthday. Guy gets girl anything but cake. Girl cries out of frustration. Guy, I think you need to calm down. I don't understand why you're upset. This entire post pains me. You are not the jerk. Edit. Some fragile egos have been bruised by my incredibly relevant comment. This comment is a literal imitation of the scenario OP explained, yet some of you are taking it pretty hard. This situation absolutely does happen. If this post had been about a neglectful girlfriend who doesn't properly communicate her needs, then I would have mocked that too. Calm down, dudes. We know you're not all bad. If you're a guy and you don't do this to your girlfriend, then you should have been able to figure out that this isn't about you. Everyone sucks here. This may sound a little direct, but I think you both need to grow up. Your birthday isn't about asking for things that you want and getting them. That's for kids. You're an adult. If there's something you want for your birthday, you get it yourself. Other people get you gifts from their heart. They do what they can for you to honor your birthday. Never reject a gift because you think it's not good enough. It's truly immature behavior. Any gift should be accepted with grace. On a separate note, if you feel like your boyfriend doesn't respect you or listen to you or care enough to take the hint that you're casually dropping, then maybe you have a separate issue. You two may not be right for each other, or maybe it's just too early for either of you to be in a relationship when you're this immature. You're the jerk. I don't care what the top comment says. He messed up, but acting that way is so childish. Edit. I would hate to date all of you downvoters. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. To be honest, I would have just gotten them the cake they wanted. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone who flips out over me getting them the wrong cake. Careful, Karen. People might get mad at you for saying that. You know how serious some people are about the things they ask for and feel entitled to. Don't remind me, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my boyfriend's flights to come visit me? I, 26 female, am in a long-distance relationship with Jay, 27 male. We've been friends for 5 years and dating for about a year and a half. Because of a previous failed long-distance relationship, I said from the very beginning that I didn't want to be in one again. But then lockdown rolled around and we were living in the same city for a bit, and I fell for him and got myself into another long-distance relationship. When our office reopened and I moved back home, 1,100 miles away, we agreed to see each other once a month, alternating locations. We've been good about keeping this schedule, but there is the occasional month where I'll go and visit him instead of him coming to me. Whoever is visiting pays for their own flights, and the person hosting covers dinners and activities. I feel that it has been a fair arrangement, as we both have full-time jobs and make decent money. However, I'm much better at money management and saving than he is, so he often finds himself stressing about funds, but still buying unnecessary stuff and making poor financial choices. It stresses me out to no end, and he knows this and is trying to do better. I recently received a raise at work and was super excited about it, given that life in general has been getting much more expensive. When I told Jay about my raise, his first reaction was to ask me to start paying for his flights to see me, as well as continuing to pay for mine to see him. I reminded him that's not the arrangement we had, and that my lifestyle does not change with this raise. I just plan on putting more money into my savings. He seemed really upset by this answer. I said that I don't think it's fair that I have to pay for everything just because he chooses to spend his money on unnecessary things. He says that I'm well off, and since I won't pay for his ticket, it makes him feel like I don't want to see him. I do want to see him. I just feel like it's not my responsibility to support him financially. And if I do, it will enable his current spending habits. He said it's incredibly selfish of me to think this way, and I understand where he's coming from, but I just don't agree. So, am I the jerk or selfish for refusing to pay for his flights to visit me? Unnecessary stuff. He enjoys collecting a certain type of liquor that can be hundreds of dollars per bottle, making modifications to his car, and other pretty expensive hobbies. Edit. We alternate months and visit each other evenly. The exception is over the summer. We met because our families have summer places in the same little lake community, so in the summer we meet there. It's a 2-hour drive for him and a 3-hour flight for me. But that I'm totally okay with. What Jay chooses to spend his money on is none of your business, just like it's none of his what you do with your money. Both of you had an agreement, which seems perfectly reasonable. Honestly, do you want to be in a relationship with him? He's financially irresponsible and not willing to change. Do you want to eventually build a life with him? Not the jerk. Relationships are a two-way street. He wants yours to be a one-way street financially. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. It's reasonable for each of you to pay for your own travel. You do not need to subsidize his expensive hobbies. Your approaches to finances represent a pretty major incompatibility. Even if you're otherwise happy right now, this does not look built for the long term. Am I the jerk for saying my in-laws have no right to judge me for not adopting my stepkids? I, 35 female, have been married to my husband, Michael, who's 38, for 5 years now. I'm the stepmother of his 2 boys from his first marriage, Lee, who's 14, and Kai, who's 8. Their mother passed 7 years ago. Kai calls me mom and has since he was 4. Lee calls me by my first name. Lee has wanted me to adopt him for some time now, and it was something discussed. The reason it has not happened is Lee does not want me to adopt him, and my husband did not feel comfortable with me adopting only Kai. He's worried about it coming between the boys, and Lee may be feeling left out eventually. But I think the main reason is he worries about the judgment of others and the fact that the comments could get to both of the boys. I love both Lee and Kai, but my relationship with each of them is different. Kai is my son, and we have a mother-son relationship. Lee is my stepson, who I love, but he doesn't always like that I'm here. Sometimes he gets annoyed that I'm here instead of his mom. Sometimes he treats me okay, but he has never been okay with me filling too much of his mom's role in his life. Our relationship is a delicate balancing act. The boys have been in therapy. We also did therapy together as a family. My husband asked the therapist for their opinion on the adoption, and she said we made the right decision, and that when the boys get older, she said once they were around 10 and 16 respectively, and their feelings have not changed, then adopting just Kai could be okay. But to make sure Lee is spoken to again and given the option to express if he changed his mind. This has been challenging because so many people have opinions. I hate seeing Kai sad, but I don't want to force anything on Lee either, or risk him feeling a certain way if we make the wrong decision. My in-laws mentioned I should adopt the boys about a month into the marriage. At the time, my husband told them we didn't need to be rushing anything. But now they're aware of what's going on, and they told me it's shameful that I have not adopted the boys and become their legal mother. They said Lee is depriving both himself and his brother of the legal protection of being their mother, and that I'm showing clear favoritism by making it obvious I want to adopt Kai and not Lee. I asked them how I make that obvious, and they ignored my question. They told me I should have jumped at the chance to be their mother, that it was monstrous to consider making one of them mine and discarding the other like yesterday's garbage. That angered me because I've always done my best. I ended up saying that they had no right to judge me for not adopting the boys because they have no idea what it's like to be a step-parent, and especially to stepkids who have lost their biological mother. And they have no idea what it's like when both of the kids want different relationships with you. They told me you don't have to be a step-parent to know someone is wrong and how they step-parent. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and well done as a step-parent. You came into the boys' lives at very different points in time, and you're respecting their individual wishes. It would be worse for you to adopt Lee when that isn't what he wants, and to be honest, it can be an option that is always on the table even when he becomes a legal adult. Am I the jerk for not paying for all of my daughter's camp? My daughter has been going to the same summer camp since she was 7. Her mother and I separated when she was 12, and we split everything evenly and always paid half and half for her camp. We never intended on it being a long-term thing, but she made friends, and they always looked forward to seeing each other every summer. Back in October of 2021, I came home to my daughter with a friend I have never seen before. She introduces her as her friend from camp. She was in the area because her family was going to Disney World. Her and my daughter were very excited to see each other, but I was a bit apprehensive about having a stranger in the home, but she stayed overnight sometimes. One night, I was cleaning through the room and realized I couldn't find an envelope I got from the bank a few days prior. After tearing apart the house and not finding it, I concluded it must have been my daughter's camp friend. I never lose stuff, and I lose money the few days a stranger from across the country has been in my house. I was livid, and when my daughter finally came back, I asked her about it, and she told me to lower my voice. Her friend was coming in as well, and they didn't see it. I confronted her friend, who got overly upset, saying her family is wealthy and she doesn't need money, and my daughter was defending her, saying that they never were apart, so there was no way she could have it. Regardless, I told her she wasn't invited inside and had to leave. This caused a huge argument with my daughter, who didn't speak to me for weeks after saying I'm disgusting. She wouldn't even agree to our custody agreement and stayed at her mother's house for months. We eventually started talking, but it was awkward and short. In the summer of 2022, her mother asked me to pay for her half of the summer camp, and I refused. Why would I pay to board my daughter with a thief? This caused another huge fight, and my ex paid for it all that summer. My daughter hasn't spoken to me since and refuses to come over. I decided to sell my car recently, and before I sold it, I did a deep clean and ended up finding the envelope in my trunk. I was so confused about how it got there, but was relieved to find it. I felt terrible about the situation with my daughter, so I texted her letting her know I found the money and that I'm sorry. We spoke, and she said she wants me to say sorry to her friend on a three-way call, which I did, and my daughter said to make up for it, I need to pay for all of her camp, just like her mother did last year when I refused. I was taken aback and said no, I'd pay for just half. She got upset again, saying it's the least I could do after I refused to pay last summer over money I misplaced after blaming her friend and embarrassing her, and I'm a huge jerk. Am I the jerk? I truly thought her friend robbed me and that it was the right thing to do to not send her there. You're the jerk. You accused this kid of being a thief with precisely zero evidence that she stole your money. Your only reasoning was essentially that you couldn't possibly be at fault because evidently you don't think it's reasonable to consider you left it in your trunk. Never mind, you're a jerk. Then your ex had to cover your share of camp last year because you were still making baseless accusations with no evidence. If you want to stick to 50-50, then you owe your ex for last year because she covered your share. Or you could just pay the entire amount this year. You made a ton of massive mistakes here, and you want to pretend like none of them even happened. Not how it works. You need to own up to your mistakes and make them right. Part of that is paying for what your ex covered last year because it was a mistake to make those accusations and not pay. Neighbor blocked our car in the driveway, so I got her car towed. My fiance, 30 female, and I, 29 male, barely moved into this house a few months ago. The first week, we noticed a car parked right on our driveway, which obviously didn't belong there. When we went outside, the lady who lived next door asked if this was okay. Her house is right at the corner of the street and there's no driveway. She said the last owner was fine with letting her park there, so she hoped we wouldn't mind. Our driveway is big enough for 2 cars, so we said for now it was okay. After our son was born and I had to go back to work, we decided to buy a second car so it's easier for her to get around. All 3 cars don't fit, so we had to tell our neighbor she can't park there anymore. Ever since, it's become a whole issue. Once, she was parked behind me when I was leaving early in the morning, so I had to go banging on her door at 6 a.m. She had the audacity to be mad for me waking her up. I reminded her that she can't park there again, so we thought she got the message. Second time was when we were on our way home from the park. She was already parked there, so we would have had to park behind her. I went to go knock, and she said she was just putting her groceries away since we weren't home and the driveway is closer. This last time when it happened, my car wasn't working, so my brother came to pick me up early. My fiance had to take our son to his 4-month appointment, but the lady's darn car was parked right behind her, so there was no way for her to pull out of the driveway. She told me the neighbor wasn't answering the door. It got late, so she had to reschedule her appointment. I came home after and I called the cops to come deal with this because I was just so tired. Since they couldn't reach her, they did end up towing the car. When she found out, she was at my door, angry. She had been a few blocks down at her friend's house, which was why she didn't answer. But now she says she's stressed because she doesn't have the money to get her car back and it's our fault. Since both our cars were there, she assumed we were both home, and if anything, we would have used my car to pull out of the driveway. My neighbor kept complaining how wrong we were to go to that extreme of making her lose her car when she absolutely needs it. We've just ignored her since then, but now every time we're stepping out, she glares right at us. I've had my car towed before too, so we know it's a nightmare of a feat to get it out of impound. That's why I'm asking if I'm the jerk. It's been almost a week since this happened, with still no sign of her car parked on the street, so obviously she hasn't got it back yet. Not the jerk. You asked nicely, she ignored you. You pounded on her door on repeated occasions not so nicely, and she ignored that you didn't want her parking there. The next logical step was to get the car towed, because she wasn't getting the message. Bet she won't park there once she has her car back. Problem solved. Also, if the doctor charged you for a visit that you had to cancel last minute, I would send the bill to her too. Don't expect her to pay it, but at least to realize that she is costing you for being the jerk. In my opinion, you gave her too many chances. None of this was your fault. You were 100% clear with her from the beginning. Your neighbor has some seriously skewed way of rationalizing this. Don't let it rub off on you. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. If she needed her car, she shouldn't be parking it somewhere where she knew she no longer had permission to park it. Get a camera though, because retaliation is likely. Am I the jerk for wanting my stepdaughter to switch schools her junior year to live with us? My husband and I have been married for 2 years and have 5 kids. His daughter from a previous marriage, who's 16, my 2 sons from a previous relationship, 13 and 15, and 2 kids together who are 3 and 1. My husband's daughter lived primarily with her mother until she was in 8th grade, when she was offered a scholarship to go to a very good boarding school for high school. I've never agreed with the idea of sending teenagers to live away from family, but her mother and my then fiance agreed that it would be beneficial for her. They drafted a new custody agreement to reflect the new school schedule. My husband moved out of state, so he always had summers and holidays anyway. When I married my husband, I thought that she would be just a day boarder, which seems better than full-time, so I let it go. By the time I learned the truth, 2020 was in full swing, and removing her wouldn't have been safe even if she wanted to leave, which she didn't. Fast forward to 2022. She's 16 years old and a junior. I recently learned that her mother moved back to her home country 6 months ago and has been letting my stepdaughter manage her own money. This means that there's now not even a parent in the same state or even the side of the country for my stepdaughter. She is completely independent in her day-to-day life. My stepdaughter has every weekend unsupervised to do whatever she pleases and independent access to not only multiple major cities, but is only a day trip from another country that she has dual citizenship in. I've seen Facebook posts of her going to art shows in other states without even pretending to ask one of her parents for permission. This isn't acceptable. It's not okay for a teen to just go live her own life, especially to this degree. We have 2 sons that are only 1 and 3 years behind her, and they're starting to see the double standard as well. I would never let any of my kids do the things my stepdaughter is doing. She's my kid too, and this needs to stop. She needs to change schools to be either with her mother or with us and be part of a family. My husband says that it's different because she was raised differently and is just more responsible, but that's BS. If he actually thinks she's not being a normal 16-year-old with that level of freedom, he's lying to himself. My stepdaughter loves her school, of course, and is very resistant to changing schools for all of 1 year of high school to leave her friends, and no doubt doesn't want to actually have rules. I'm still pushing the issue, and now my husband and stepdaughter are mad at me for trying to change the status quo. The boys are mad at me for having double standards, and other family members are mad at me for either over or understepping in my role. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. She's at a boarding school and doesn't need to ask permission to see art shows. You're being dramatic and she's not even your kid. On top of that, you're controlling. You're acting as if she's getting into trouble and interacting with bad people her age or older. Calm down. You have no good reason for her to change schools, and you are overstepping your role. Her parents already created a plan, and you have to respect that. She's asking the school for day-to-day things she would need parental permission for, and unless OP is a time traveler, the telephone and email exists. Stepdaughter could very well be asking mom over the phone or via text to be getting permission to travel out of state. The only point OP might have is to suggest that dad's, assuming he wants that, permission be necessary to travel out of state, etc. Most teenagers have spending money that they can act with on their own. Daughter likely has a roommate and an RA equivalent on the floor, house mother, etc., which are possibly stricter than most parents. I'm sure his kid would tell him before she goes out of state, so it's not like she's completely running rogue. OP is just mad she has no control over a situation that doesn't concern her. You're the jerk. She hasn't given you any reason to doubt her ability to take care of herself and behave appropriately, so you would be punishing her for literally nothing. She's going to art shows? How wild. Just leave the kid alone. She's not your kid, and she's been fine this long. Removing her from a situation that works for her and isn't harming anyone would be cruel and unreasonable. You should be proud she's independent and cultured. Am I the jerk for taking my brother-in-law to small claims court over art supplies? A bit of context. I, 29 male, like to draw and try other mediums as well. As such, I've accumulated a lot of art supplies over the past few years. My wife, Sally, 27 female, also dabbles a bit, and we have converted one of the rooms in our home into an art studio of sorts. There's easily a few $1,000s worth of art supplies in that room, and we tend to keep it locked for that reason. Most important to me are my pencils and markers, which were not cheap. On to the story. Sally and I had her family over for her aunt's birthday a few weeks back, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law brought their kids with them, who are 7 and 6. We had forgotten to lock the door to the room that day. About an hour into the party, I noticed that both of the kids were nowhere to be seen, so I asked my sister-in-law if she knew where they were. She said that they were drawing in the other room. I asked if my wife was with them, and she said she just told them which room it was in. I immediately rushed over to the art room and found it was a total mess. Most devastatingly was the fact that all of my markers were ruined because the kids were using way too much force, causing the tips to fray. I yelled at them to get out, and they started crying. My brother-in-law ran over and started yelling at me, saying that they're just kids and it's just markers. I told him that these markers alone were $17 a piece, and he said I was stupid for paying that much. Sally tried to defuse the situation, but my brother-in-law started yelling at her too, saying we can't have this much art supplies and not expect kids to want to use it. I told him he's paying to replace the markers and the other supplies they ruined, and he told me to buzz off, and he left. Everyone left shortly after that. I totaled up the damages, and I need to replace about $375, and found that the kids drew on a piece I had spent the past week working on, as well as ruining a finished piece Sally did. I sent him a bill, and he blocked me. So I talked with my friend, who was a lawyer, and had him draft a claim for small claims court and a letter to send my brother-in-law. I paid him for this, of course. My wife is in agreement about this, but her family has been mobbing us, telling us we're being ridiculous over some markers. Only my father-in-law, who also has taken up painting recently, and my other sister-in-law say that brother-in-law has to pay. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Parents need to watch their own kids. How entitled is it to just send them to a room in someone else's house and tell them to go wild with whatever is in there without even asking? I don't get all the "you're the jerks and everyone sucks" here, saying that you should have locked the door. How about the parents watch their kids and make sure they stay with them? Though in this case, that wouldn't have helped because they felt their kids were entitled to your stuff. The way they wrecked 2 pieces of actual art is the worst part of all.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to destroy your artwork too, unless you subscribe to the channel right now for new stories from Reddit every single day. And watch this video next, right there, that one. Read.